After building $1 million business and helping my clients hit 6 figures and 7 figures in under a year, I've created a pattern, which is a 10-step repeatable formula that works across industries. And once you understand this, scaling your business becomes inevitable. So in this video, I'm gonna break those 10 powerful steps down into bite-sized lessons so you can separate your business from those that struggle and those that literally print money. So with that being said, let us dive right into this first concept. And I have them broken down into different sections. And section 1 is about the invisible force in business. Because you've probably noticed that some offers sell without trying, right? The business seems like it was an overnight success. And some businesses can be like that. Most aren't. Others are always fighting against this invisible force. And I'm going to explain what it is. So lesson number 1 is this concept of tsunami versus trickle, because every market has natural forces of demand. Because what is business, right? Business is literally supply and demand, right? And we're trying to find the perfect balance of supply and demand. This is just economics 101. So what you have to understand is some businesses, they are like a tsunami. They are tapping into forces where it's just a strong force where the offer just sells itself and they become unstoppable. But others, they're always trying to create a demand from scratch because they're trying to explain to their clients like what this thing is. And when you do that, it's like you're trying to create this stream with an eyedropper, right? You're putting a lot of effort, but it's just exhausting and slow. What we always want is a tsunami, not a trickle. The thing is, the smartest entrepreneurs, they don't try to create demand. They identify where it already exists and positions themselves in its path. So oftentimes your job is to really figure out what the market wants. You want to spend a lot of time being a good researcher, whether you've been in business for 10 years or if this is your 3rd year, you always want to keep your finger on the pulse, because what the desires of the market are today isn't going to be what they are tomorrow. So you always want to figure this out, and you always want to see, like, is there a tsunami that you could kind of tap into? Because that makes life so much easier. Oftentimes I'm seeing people that have to do constant explaining, like, I do this is how it works. If you have to do all this explaining, right, and why you should care, oh God, this is hard, because you're trying to create this entire new category. Like, sure, eventually, maybe it's going to be great, but for most founders, you don't have the marketing skills or the sales skills or frankly, the budget to tap into all of this. If you want the easier path, just find where there is an existing demand and just supply it. So the key, of course, is to enter markets where the demand is so strong that your only problem is keeping up with it. Ask yourself, are people naturally right now asking for the solution to the problem that you solve? If the answer is no, you've picked a really bad offer. I'm going to give you this extreme example. During the lockdowns, we had hand sanitizer and we had toilet paper. No matter how shitty of a hand sanitizer or toilet paper it was getting sold out. Usually, this sells for 50 cents. But during the lockdowns, they were going for 10x the price. $5 for this tiny little bottle. Same thing with toilet papers, right? This is an extreme example of what a really good offer should be like, where you don't have to explain it. It just like flies off the shelves. When you do this, you don't need any marketing. You don't need any sales skills. You don't have to educate your clients on what it is, why they should be caring about it, right? So you always want to think about, how can I find the next hand sanitizer? How can I find the next toilet paper? Because if you do that right, the rest of the principles in this video, you don't need it. That's it. You will literally be printing cash. But for most of us, that might not be the reality. So let's just go on with the video. Lesson number 2 is the initial conditions. Look, creating banger offers is pretty simple. You just need to think about it in terms of opening a physical store. I feel like when we create all these things digitally, we forget human psychology. We start becoming dumb. So instead, let's be smart and think about this old school brick and mortar store, right? The reason I say that is back in the day, everybody knew that the location that you start with within the city is going to be super important, because if you're trying to work with the wealthy or the poor, the middle class, you have to choose your location very, very wisely, because that is your initial audience, and that is going to set you up for a trajectory of failure or success. Let me explain. A lot of people want to work with the wealthy, right? Who doesn't? Do you want to ease your time in business? You want to get paid and you just want to, have more profits? Most people say yes to that. Who wants to work for peanuts? I know I don't. That's why all of my services and stuff are expensive. Now, what happens is people have this dream of like, you know what? I'm going to have the finest fine dining restaurant. One day we're going to be a Michelin star winner. But then they open this restaurant up in a college town with these broke kids. And what happens is these broke kids can't really afford these premium prices. So the restaurant has to adapt. They have to lower their prices and they get stuck in this little weird downward cycle because they had this poor starting audience. So they have to have poor prices, poor profits, and poor resources and poor growth. Think about this. If you are supposed to be serving steak for $30, but these kids can only afford $10, right? Where's that difference coming from? Can you really afford the highest quality meat with such low prices? Obviously not. So that's why I say a poor audience means poor purchasing power and poor prices, which is poor profits for you and poor resources. You cannot invest in a proper team, systems. I would also say coaches. Like, you'll have a hard time even affording somebody like me, like a top consultant or coach, because you really don't have the margins. And so this means a poor growth. So you at best are just going to be a mom and pop restaurant, right? Maybe you dreamt of like, oh, one day I'm going to be the finest restaurant. But because of this downward cycle that you found yourself in, it's just a mom and pop restaurant where you're working your butt off every day, every night, and not really making a lot of money. And you can't ever escape all that hard work because you don't have anybody else in your business to rely on. So this is something you want to keep in mind. Not a lot of people think about that initial starting audience. They always think, oh, you know what? Let me just charge low prices now and eventually I'm going to ladder my way up. Well, sure, but that's sometimes a logical fallacy because your starting audience dictates who your next round of clients are going to be. Because who do you think these college kids are going to be referring to this restaurant? More college kids. Sure, you can argue, well, they have parents, they have friends that could be wealthy. Well, yeah, sure, but predominantly they're going to be talking to more college kids. So that's the loop you're going to find yourself in. The other thing that people don't think about is it takes just as much work to build a really good fine dining restaurant as it does to just create a kind of a hole in the wall. Because think about this. This is the time, right? A clock. A restaurant owner, they might be waking up at 6 a.m., a typical restaurant owner, and they might be working late all throughout the day. That's what I've heard a typical restaurant owner does. And they might clock out at like 10 at night or 9 at night. Now, this is same whether you are a Michelin star restaurant charging $100 per meal, or if you're just a local spot for kids, right? You are working essentially the same amount of hours, yet the price is totally different. So your earnings are going to be totally different. So why would you ever want to set yourself up for that type of misery? If you're going to work hard, you might as well earn good. Do you think a real estate agent selling a home for $500K versus $5 million has a different skill set? Not really. Of course, I don't know much about real estate. I'm not a real estate expert, but look, they're doing showings. They have to have customer service experience. They got to know how to sell and close deals. I would actually argue it's easier to sell that $5 million home because when the buyer sees it, they're more decisive. They're going to jump at it versus the $500 home. They're going to have to show it to the masses and it's going to be way harder. I just want to illustrate this point. And this segues perfectly into lesson number 3, which is money psychology. Over here, you might be like, all right, I get it, Mahmoud. Like, I want to set myself up on the right trajectory. I want to work with premium clients from day one. So I'm going to be charging premium pricing because that's going to allow that premium growth in my business. But keep in mind, this is something that not a lot of people think about, which is your market's relationship with money determines everything. Because in business, there's 2 different things, right? They have to have the ability to spend money, but they also have to have the willingness to spend money. Let me explain. How do they think about money? Like, do they have a great relationship with earning and spending money, or are they tight-fisted with every dollar? Because this isn't just about income, it's about human psychology. Some people, they think that spending money is like joy and achievement. That's how I am. I'm like, well, I work hard for my money. Even though, yeah, it's leveraged and it's scalable, but still, I'm doing something for my money. It's not just falling out of the sky. Maybe one day it will, but for right now, I'm working for it. But I love spending money because I'm like, why not splurge on myself? Why not splurge on other people? And one of my affirmations is like, I earn so I can splurge on myself and use money for good. Like, I want to spread joy in the world with what I earn by donating and all that stuff. So for me, spending and giving is a sign of joy and achievement, versus there's other people that are probably similar like me at the 7-figure mark. For them, spending is like, I'm getting hustled. I should save every freaking penny, every freaking dollar. And you probably know people like this, right? Now, the thing is, I wasn't always like that. For me, once upon a time, when it was like 3-4 years ago, I was like, if I'm going to make $1,000 purchase decision, I want to take 2 weeks to research, to look at every single review, every single testimonial, really contemplate, is it the right choice for me? Am I making a wise decision? And I would literally consume those 2 weeks to make sure that this is the right decision for me, because I valued that $1,000 more than my time. So I wasted 2 weeks not giving a crap of the 2 weeks, giving more craps about that $1,000. Now it's flipped. I could be thinking about a $10,000 investment or purchase, and I'm going to take literally maybe like 2-3 hours, not even, because if I see something that I really like, and I know in my heart that this is a good decision, and I know in my brain, like, okay, it's fine, let's go for it, I'll just pull the trigger. I don't want to watch reviews. I don't want to contact the people that have used this service and be like, hey, was it good for you? Like, what are your thoughts? Would you purchase it again? Like, no, that's an absolute waste of my time. I know that I can earn 10 grand like this, like easy peasy, right? So I value my time. But more importantly, I also know that I have the ability to create success with or without this investment or purchase. So why waste so much time thinking about this? So mindset has shifted, right? So you have to understand that if you want to charge those premium prices, you want to tap into people that have a natural willingness to spend high ticket. Like, if you ever get me on a sales call, I'm the easiest person to sell to. But just putting it out there, don't try to just pitch me stuff. Now, others need convincing to spend even $100. You also want to understand that this money mindset follows them regardless of income, and you cannot be changing people's relationship with money. That is a very, very hard sell when you have to educate them. You have to indoctrinate them. You have to instill the beliefs that, oh, it's totally okay, you should be spending money on yourself. Like, it's a harder, longer, lengthier process, because the concept of this video is to put you in a position where scaling is easy and you're not fighting an uphill battle. Now, you also want to keep this in mind that this applies to people's self-worth and self-concept, because having money is not the same as willing to spend money. You probably understand this, right? If you want to charge premium prices, don't sell to homeless people. That's just obvious. There's no other way to put it. You always want to target wealthy people and sell to them. But it's also, how do they view themselves? A lot of people have money, but then they still view themselves like this. They have this beggar's mindset. They have the employee mindset. That is not going to be easy. So you always want to target these people that not only are wealthy in their wallets, but also wealthy in their mind. So this brings us to section number 2, the law of fractals, because small numbers can actually predict big problems or big wins. And lesson number 4 is what I call the snowflake rule, because we as humans have a tendency to think we are all unique snowflakes. The thing is, we are not. We are all very similar. There are similar patterns in all of us, in personalities, in the way we think and we operate. And this is all based on this one concept. It's a scientific concept of fractal patterns. So I'm going to quickly explain what that is. So a fractal is basically a geometric pattern that repeats at small scales and even at larger scales. And they're just like similar shapes, regardless of how much you zoom in or zoom out. The perfect example is a snowflake, right? Because the starting shape of a snowflake is this rectangle. And so it's basically rectangles overlapping and creating a snowflake. And if you look at it under a microscope and you zoom in, you're going to see snowflakes. Let me show you. I'm going to do this absolutely horrendous job at drawing, but if you look at this arm of a snowflake, right, it kind of looks like this. But then if I were to actually put it under a microscope and zoom in on just this part, you'll also see, oh, there's actually more arms that branch out. And then if I go in, I leave a little more, it'll be same. It just branches out. And then if I zoom out, it's also this bigger snowflake. So this pattern just repeats itself. If you also look at like leaves, the same pattern just continues. Again, it's very fascinating. We're getting very, very scientific. So what does this have to do with your business? Well, let me explain. The thing is, if this is true, that what happens at small scale happens at large scale, this is the truth, guys. Like when you see that elections are going on, like let's say the US elections, and they're saying, hey, people, X, Y, and Z candidate is getting ahead in the polls. Do you literally think they go to millions and millions of people and ask them like, oh, this candidate, like, are you going to vote for them? No, they do a small sample size in one city, one state. And based on that sample size, they know, okay, this is what the rest of the population is going to feel. This is what the sentiment is like, okay? So this is being used whether you are aware of this or not. So if you want to be a smart founder, tap into fractals, okay? And what I mean by this is if you tell your offer to 1,000 people, if only 10 out of those 1,000 people actually understand your offer and or want your offer, okay, you're in trouble because not a lot of people care about it, right? 1 out of 1,000 or 10 out of 1,000, like it's kind of a weak pull, but there is a but, which is unless those 10 people can pay extremely high prices, because what's going to happen is you are basically creating a business where you have to sift through a lot of people. Because if, let's say, this is 1,000 and you basically have to wait like, oh, okay, I have to get through this entire population and then boom, bingo, sale. And then same over here, you got to wait. And then one sale, like it's going to be infrequent, but it could be fine if those people are willing to pay big dollars, and that's totally cool. But you're in trouble when it's an extremely small niche and they can't pay much. It's like, what are you going to do, right? We're back at the same problem that we talked about over here, where we have poor prices, poor profits, right? And it couldn't be high prices, but super infrequent sales. So you don't want to get yourself into that kind of trouble. The important thing is your offer needs to have mass desire and mass appeal. And the results that you see with a small audience size will be the same with a larger audience size. A lot of founders think that if I give it more time, it will improve. If I get more results, if I get more testimonials, it will improve. The thing is, it never gets easier. Go out there right now. You've probably already done this. Tell 1,000 people about what you do. Are they literally saying, how can I get this? How can I buy this? I'm willing to pay whatever it takes. If yes, awesome. If no, you're kind of in trouble, and it will be a logical fallacy to think that over time it will improve. It doesn't improve because there's a natural attraction for what you do, and that attraction is weak because it only resonates with this tiny portion of the population. It doesn't have mass desires. I'm gonna make another video in the future about mass desires. I definitely don't want to get into this rabbit hole because that is a video on its own. But what you have to understand is if you don't have mass desire and the people that you sell to can't really pay you that much, how will you scale? That's the thing, right? Because the entire concept for this video is to set you up so scaling becomes easy. And how will you ever build something beyond a small mom and pop business? It goes back to that same old restaurant analogy. Small numbers now means small numbers later, just with more expensive marketing and more wasted time, energy, and effort. If you have ever run ads and you have experienced ads, you know that if you test a new ad concept and you spend $500 behind it, whatever results you're seeing right now, that is the results. And I know a lot of people say like, well, you got to spend more. Not necessarily. Whatever the CTR is, that's what it is. Whatever the lead cost is, that's what it is. Whatever the cost per call is going to be. It doesn't matter if you spend another $5,000 on it. Those conditions don't improve. And with more spend, it will actually get worse because the efficiency will get diluted as you go further and further out into your audiences, right? You have to take that same mindset and understand, like, if I'm starting right now and I'm not getting like 10x ROAS, if I scale, it's going to be even worse. So same thing with your offer. And so these fractals also exist in people. So you also want to understand like what's the natural attraction for your offer. This segues us perfectly into this volume versus pricing matrix, because you are either playing the volume game, right? Sell a bunch of stuff to a bunch of people, or you're playing the premium game. And if you're playing the volume game, you want to be mass market, you want to have reasonable prices so everybody and their mom can afford it. If you're in the premium game, right, it's a smaller market, but you can charge huge dollars for this, right? The place that businesses go to die is in the middle, because they're neither. They're not cheap enough for the masses, they're not expensive enough for a specific niche. And you have to understand that you need enough margin to operate properly, or you need volume to make thin margins work. So you definitely want to pick your lane and commit to it, because it's very simple. If we have, 1,000 people over here or whatever, let's just draw this. How many of them are going to be willing to give you money, right? You could also over here just have, let's just say over here, this is 1,000 people and all of them just gives you a little bit of money. But over here, you only have like 2 buyers, but they have huge purchasing power. They can pay you a ton more than what these people can do. So both scenarios work. You have to understand which model you're creating. But the worst is this middle ground where you're not doing any of them well. A great example of this is going to be Planet Fitness and Lifetime Fitness in US. Planet Fitness, if you're not familiar with them, they're super cheap. $10 a month, right? They're kind of like the Walmart of gyms. Lifetime Fitness, they charge $300 per month. They also charge like a $200 sign-up fee. Fundamentally, the two gyms are very same. The dumbbells are literally the same, right? It's just heavy weights, treadmills, all of that stuff, like equipment aside, it's practically the same thing. But how come people are spending 30x more for Lifetime versus Planet Fitness? Well, the amenities are actually better. You have a cleanlier place. You get like all the spa amenities. Like Lifetime is like a Disneyland for fitness people. I've personally been a member of Lifetime and I freaking love it. Planet Fitness, oh man, you go in there once, you never want to walk in there. It's literally like a zoo. So oftentimes I've paid for Lifetime Fitness because the crowd is more mature, more sophisticated. If you want to network with people, that's the place to be. So create Lifetime type amenities. You can't just also put this sticker on over here into Planet Fitness and be like, okay, we are also $300 a month, because you're also going to need the amenities aside from just the machines, right? Like I said, machines are all the same. Now, section number 3. This is going to be the hardest hitting one. I hope you're ready for this, because a lot of founders don't want to hear this. It hurts them, but this is the truth, my friend. Different beats better every time, and dummies sell better only. Probably triggered you right now, didn't I? Let's get into lesson number 6. This is what I call the Concord paradox, okay? The world doesn't care about what's best or better. They care about what's new and different. I know this one hurts sometimes for me because I have the best products and it hurts, but it's true. The world literally doesn't care about whether you are the best at this one thing. And I'm going to prove it to you, because it has happened time and time again throughout history. People literally do not give a shit about whether you are the best at this thing. Let me show you why. The human brain is wired to crave novelty and excitement. Different attracts attention. Better requires convincing. If you don't believe me, go to Las Vegas, right? And just walk down the strip. You're going to see all the restaurants, all the attractions. They're all very different, all kind of crazy. And it goes to show you the human psychology at play, at mass. People aren't like going around there like, oh, this club is slightly better than this. It's like, oh, this is wildly different. This is an experience. In Vegas, they have this new installation. It's called a Sphere. It's literally a concert hall that has these mirrors, and I don't know how to even describe it, but it's literally a concert venue that is out of this world. Glasses, mirrors throughout, and it just is an immersive experience. Now that is worth flying into, right? You want to go to Vegas to check that out. But do you want to go to just another concert venue which is like, well, it's a little bit bigger, their sound system is a little bit bigger? Like, are you seriously going to fly all the way across the world to check that out? Like, no, nobody wants to go somewhere where it's a slightly little better thing, right? Because lot of people are competing on better. I am better than the competition in X, Y, and Z way. And again, people just don't care. So you want to start competing on different. Now, here's the thing. True masters will create different plus better. Oh, if you can do that, like, my gosh, you are amazing. And you might still be watching this and saying like, holy crap, Mahmoud is like telling me to just sell shitty products out in the market. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm saying be different and better. Different has to happen first, okay? Then better. The reason is, I'm going to give you 3 examples. Concorde. It was the fastest commercial plane ever. Like, it was, what is it called? Supersonic. Okay. Now, it could fly in half the time. It took a flight from New York to London, 7 hours. Concorde could do it in 3.5 hours. Think about it. Like, everybody hates plane rides. Well, hate is a strong word, but nobody wants to sit on super, super long haul flights. At least I don't. But imagine a world where all the flight times were cut in half. And that happened 20 years ago, guys. 20 years ago, we had that technology. And this is Concorde. You might be looking at this if you are not familiar with Concorde and thinking that, oh my gosh, this is like some AI generated weird looking aircraft. No. It's a real, true aircraft that was operational 20 years ago. But then they killed that project. It was just too expensive. And it had a very tiny niche crowd, like super wealthy people, or you had like really well-doing entrepreneurs that could afford it. Essentially, there were a limited amount of seats and only a tiny amount of people could afford it. And the fuel consumption was super high. Like, it was not fuel efficient at all. It was like 20 times more than what the regular airplanes consume. So again, that project was killed. Blu-ray versus DVD. Blu-ray, better quality, more storage, but they lost. They were losing this battle to DVD, but then streaming came along, like Netflix, totally killed it. Here's a crazier example. The keyboard that you type on. This is known as the QWERTY keyboard. So like, look at your keyboard, right? It's QWERTY, QWERTY. That's why it's called QWERTY. QWERTY is actually not the best keyboard. There was actually a better one called a Dvorak keyboard. It was faster. So imagine that you could be typing and getting a lot more done in half the time. And that was the Dvorak keyboard. But again, it lost. Why? Because manufacturers of different computers, typewriters, just don't see a reason to switch over. And it's like, how does it benefit them? How are they going to make more money? So again, companies literally don't care about better. Time and time again, just search for projects that were better than the competition, but they died a slow death because they weren't different, they weren't cool, they weren't unique. So this is why I say, keep this Concorde paradox in mind. And I'm going to give you this other example of Glenwood Caverns. It's a theme park in Colorado, pretty close from me. The rides are not spectacular. It's kind of horrible, to be honest. But views are stunning because it's literally a amusement park in the middle of the mountains. The views are really stunning. And you like have this one ride where you can just like hang off the side of the mountain and, you know, get yourself like shot up there and then come back, right? It's cool for the views. So it's super, super unique. And people are just like lining up because it is different. It's the only mountaintop theme park. Maybe there are other ones, but that's the only one that I am aware of. So again, novelty beats quality every single time, and unique experiences always win. Believe it or not, back in the day when it first opened up, people used to actually climb up by foot. They trekked. Imagine this. You hiked up a mountain to do this amusement park. Like, it's crazy, right? And then later on, people used to take like little horse carriages to get up there. Now, of course, it's like modernized and you have like gondolas and roads taking you up there and it's easy. But think about this. People hike up a mountain to check this out. So going back to our analogy of your offer being a physical store or a physical location, is your offer cool enough, sexy enough, novel enough for people to just trek and hike up a mountain to get it? And when I say this, I don't mean like providing a guarantee. Like, you think Glenwood Springs has to provide a guarantee like, we promise you'll enjoy our theme park. If not, we'll refund your money and give you $10 extra. Like, that's how you create shitty copycat offers, because you don't have anything unique. You have to convince people by giving them greed. But when you have a truly original offer, you don't have to do gimmicks like that. So always think about it. Like, are people going to drive out of their way to come to your store? Now, lesson number 7 is the viral factor. Your offer must increase people's social status. It must be cool enough to share. It must elevate their social standing, because people buy, of course, to solve their problem. But the bonus part is if that solution also elevates their status. And a lot of premium brands and companies have tapped into this, because people don't just buy the product, they buy into a story they can tell. They also buy content they can share, right? Because everybody wants to be sharing their experiences, because that elevates their status. Who wants to be generic, especially in the day of social media? Like, do you think anybody wants to share like, hey, this is me, this is my average boring life? Like, everybody out there, at least the masses, are trying to play this game of, look at me, how cool I am. Look at my life. This is the cool thing I'm doing. This is the cool thing I've purchased. So you have to understand this. Again, this is the fractals. This is where the society is taking us, whether you like it or not. It's like gravity. You can fight it, but it's always going to be there. So you might as well use it to your advantage. Because when you have this viral factor, it creates this natural word of mouth. Marketing becomes effortless. The market sells for you. A crazy example of this is Salt Bay. Like, it's just viral, right? There's tons of restaurants like this where the food isn't anything spectacular, but it is a spectacle. So that's the thing. Worst is if you're selling something where the market or the people are ashamed to talk about it. So you constantly have to market it and sell it in secret. So Porsche, they tapped into this thing like crazy. In the last 3 years, like, they've blown up all over TikTok and Instagram Reels. Like, you see these memes all the time. It's like me at 4 a.m. building a car I can't afford. There's like literally profiles and channels dedicated to Porsche memes. They just create this. Now, I also want to give you this example. When I purchased my 911, this was the purchasing process, okay? I obviously went to the dealership and I was told like, it's going to be a 2-year wait. Put down, if I remember, like $10,000. We will call you. It was just like, they gave me a little paper. They had their bank wire transfer and just said, send us the money. Nothing, no contract, no nothing. And it was like, okay, sure, I'll do it. And they had a long list of people. And it was a 2-year wait. And just said, if you're going to be lucky, you'll get it in 2 years. If not, maybe 3 years. And that's the typical process for getting a 911. And they keep it that way on purpose. They keep the supply low, demand very high. Economics 101. So one day I get a text from my sales rep at Porsche, Anna. She just sends me this. Hi, Mahmoud, how are you? Sends me pictures. These are digital renders from the configurator, not the real car. Just said, I have this coming in. That's it. I have this coming in, and nothing about the car, right? Just photos. And I just said, hey, thanks. When are you expecting this? Any day now. Here's the funny part. Look at the timestamp, right? This was me back in the day, 2023, 1:41 p.m. And I replied back at 3:19 p.m. I'll take it. Easiest sales process on earth. Didn't even have to say anything, do anything, just sent photos and said like, I have this car. Like, didn't even ask, do you want this? Do you want that? Like, can I call you? Can I tell you more about it? They just like, this is the typical process of buying like luxury vehicles. It's just like, boom. So again, because this has a mass desire, all of the other lessons that I talked about, right? And again, they have this viral factor. Back in the day, these were the poster ads for Porsche. They used to actually take out an ad in magazine and it said like, honestly now, did you spend your youth dreaming about someday owning a Nissan or Mitsubishi? And the funny thing is, Nissan and Mitsubishi, both of those companies are like dead. Nobody knows about them, right? So crazy. They had this viral factor back then and they still do. Do you know why? Because they have tapped into the snowflake rule. What is working now was actually working back then, 60 years ago, because this is the law of fractals. And year after year, the price of Porsches just go up like crazy. The car that I purchased was 200K. Now the starting price point for that same car is like more. They increased it by 50K. Why? Because they can, and people will buy it. That's it. And they've also appealed to mass desires. They've appealed to money psychology. So all of the lessons that I talked about, like Porsche is doing this. So again, keep this in mind. So let's keep this rolling, right? Section number 4 is the evolution playbook. So some businesses naturally expand while others stagnate. You always see these businesses that were doing well once upon a time, and then now they're like almost going extinct. Lesson number 8 is the one meal problem. I see a lot of people creating solutions that are just like a one-time pill. It's like you take this once and it will solve all of your life's problem for the rest of life. If that's the case, how will you ever get repeat business? Like, think about it, right? It's kind of crazy. And sometimes it's also unbelievable to the market. Like, how can that be? One pill, I'm never hungry again for the rest of my life. Too unbelievable, right? Sounds like a scam. It's bad for business, and it also sounds like scam. So it's like double worse. The thing is, one-time clients equals to constant hunting because you don't have any repeat business, no repeat revenue. You have higher acquisition costs because you have a kind of a lower LTV. It becomes harder to scale. You're always starting the next month from zero, right? And so you need to engineer repeat business, or your business becomes a constant hamster wheel of chasing and acquisition and constantly chasing new clients, never building momentum, never gaining efficiency, always in hunting mode. This is a problem. And so you always want to think about, like, how can I sell them more? And that is the key. Like at my company, Rapid Bookings, we have a pretty high LTV. If I remember correctly off the top of my head, it's 18K. So if we sign one client during the lifetime of them staying there, they're going to give us 18K. So that's pretty freaking good. So how can you do the same thing in your business? How can you ensure that people not only buy once, but they buy again and again? So the product has to be good, of course, that is a given, but it also has to be different enough where it does more than just satisfy their need once and for good. The other thing is the lesson number 9, which is the talent magnet. This, I can promise you, not a lot of people think about this, because if your business was literally a physical store, would future team members relocate to work at your store? Most founders don't think about this. They just pick problems to solve. They're like, oh, I'm very passionate about this problem for this set of people. And they create these products based on passion. It's all based on passion. But the question is, are other people, your future team members, going to be passionate about this? If we are right here in the middle of a desert in Namibia, and this is the little hut that you have, and this is your company, are people actually going to drive all the way out there, fly all the way out there to live there and work there? Versus if your company or offer was in New York or LA or London, somewhere sexy, how easy would it be to not only find talent in that exact same city, but to also go to someone else and be like, hey, would you be wanting to relocate to New York or London or LA? A lot of people would say yes. You'd have an easier time attracting and keeping talent. So this is something that I learned kind of the hard way. My company, Rapid Bookings, right? It's too niche. Team members, they joined the company because they liked me as a founder. Slowly I learned, like, not a lot of people knew about this wedding industry, about wedding photography. And they were like, well, I'll come work for you because I like you as a founder. But they didn't have this strong pull about weddings in general, except for one girl. She was an ex-wedding photographer. So of course she had passion for the niche. She understands our mission, but other people, not really. So it became a limited talent pool because I want to hire people that are not just there for the money. They have to be excited about the mission. And a founder is definitely one part of it. It's like maybe 33%, right? It's founder, the team and culture, plus the mission and problems we're solving. So it's only one fraction of the thing. It becomes hard to find passionate people if you are picking something that is extremely, extremely niche. Think about your future scale. Like, where do you envision yourself? 1 million per year, 5 million per year, 10 million, 20, 50, 100, right? So The bigger the dreams and ambitions that you have, the bigger the market has to be. Again, your offer, your mission has to be magnetic. It must attract A players. They should want to be part of it just beyond a paycheck. The greatest example of this is SpaceX. Engineers take a pay cut to work for Elon. He underpays people, but they still go work for him because he says, like, this is a crazy vision, mission. We're going to go to Mars. If you're crazy enough, bold enough to come join our team, like, come. So it attracts a different level of passion. People just aren't there for money because the money isn't there, right? They're stealing the top talent from other tech companies, and people are going to SpaceX. So think about it. Are you building SpaceX, or are you building something like this, boring in the middle of nowhere? So the final thing that's going to be talked about today is lesson number 10, which is evolve or die. Because what's working today won't work tomorrow. Environment and market preferences change. This happens all the time, right? You have a good offer and you usually have 12 to 24 months to milk that good offer. If you are lucky, that's the thing. If, right? Then you need to switch it up. Competitors will also copy without shame. I can tell you right off the bat, like at my company, Rapid Bookings, right? Whatever we did, competitors 2-3 months later shamelessly try to do this to try to take our scraps, like crazy. Now, it always will happen that other people are gonna either try to copy you, so then your offer now becomes generic and commoditized because other people are copying this and they don't know that you are the original creator of this. The other thing is people's preferences and technology changes. Like, look at this Blockbuster. Some people are aware of this, which is back in the day, if you wanted to watch a movie, you had to go to a physical store, get some CDs and DVDs, and you would rent it and then you'd return it, right? Some of the younger audiences watching my channel are be like, what is that? Well, Blockbuster, that was a thing before Netflix. Then Netflix came along and they were saying, you don't have to come to our store, we will ship it to you. Then they went streaming. So if we look at Netflix now, they started with movies. Now they're adding original content. They have like live sports. A lot of things are happening at Netflix because they are having to adapt with time. Same thing with Amazon, right? They were books only, then they went all kind of retail goods. And then now they also have like cloud computing and entertainment because they're trying to rival Netflix. They have this big competition going on right now who can dominate. So again, the key principle is you have to stay relevant or become obsolete. You can keep researching, you have to keep adapting, and then you have to keep evolving because you don't want to be Blockbuster. They were too cocky. Netflix went to them and pitched their offer and they just laughed like, oh no, we don't want this. But look at Blockbuster now, they are gone. Netflix, well, they are rising. The reason they are rising is they keep reinvesting back into their business, into their growth. Here is the TLDR, the lazy viewer summary. I don't think you guys are lazy. I'm sure if you've stayed this long, good for you. So you want to think about your offer, your business, like you're opening a physical store. So choose your location wisely because this is your market, your initial conditions. Make it worth the drive. Remember Glenwood Springs, people hiked up the mountain. Would people do that for you? When you think about it like that, this is beyond just slapping on a stupid generic guarantee. We guarantee you money back. Like, come on. Nobody's going to hike up a mountain because you have a satisfaction money back guarantee. You want to keep clients and customers coming back, repeat business for higher LTV, but then you also want to always stay fresh because what's working today is not going to work tomorrow, because if history tells us anything time and time again, if you don't evolve, you die. So if you'd like to work directly with me and my team on this exact topic to create an offer that not only scales today, but also keeps scaling in the future, go down below because we're looking for a select few clients at my other company, Aligned HQ, where we work with founders just like you to create leveraged, scalable businesses. So go down below, check out the description in the link. This is exactly what I've done with my client Bo. Took him from $500K per year to $1.4 million in less than 6 months. Larissa, given her an annual growth of 342%. And Vishal, who added $75,000 in just 3 months to his business while maintaining 13x ROAS. This is not just fluke. These are timeless principles at play. So you could go do this trial and error by yourself, or come work with a true master like myself, and I'll help you set yourself up on the right trajectory and scale your business up. So if you'd like to do so, click the link below, book in a call. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.